Hey guys, welcome back to Honey in the Rock. This is episode 74. I'm Sophie, and today you guys are going to hear from a super special guest. It's Maia Mae Huff. I am so excited for you guys to hear from her. She has so much wisdom to share, and she was genuinely so sweet and such a sunshine. And so I really am so excited for y'all to hear from her. I say that like 12 times because I really am. You can follow her on Instagram. She has a cute little faith-based brand, and then she's launching something new soon, so you can follow her and just tag along with everything she does. But I'm sure you already know her. But if you're new here, you can follow Honey in the Rock on Instagram. It's honey in the .rock, like period rock. And then a new podcast episode comes up every Tuesday at 7 a.m. on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. But I'm really excited for y'all to hear from her. We talk about a lot of different things. Bear with me, the audio isn't perfect, but it gets a little better as it goes on. Still haven't perfected the over the phone calls yet with audio, but I hope you can hear it because it is such a good episode. So I hope you enjoy. I really am so excited. So thank you, and we'll just dive right in. So my first question is, tell my guest, what is your testimony?
That's a big question. I will give you guys a little bit of a short. I won't give you every single detail. So that way we could have some more time to talk, because we could sit down and talk for this about 17 hours. And
Yes.
it's cool how as you continue to walk with the Lord, like He even just continues to change your testimony because you continue to walk, and you go through certain things with Him, and it's just like a ever evolving process. It's just been really sweet with the Lord. But I would say how I first came to know God. So I've known the Lord pretty much my whole life. Like I've gone to like Wednesday night, like we went to Wednesday night church things, to like hang out after school, and then I would go to we never really went to church on Sundays really as a family. And then whenever it went to, but I always went on Wednesday nights in middle school and even like elementary school. And it's kind of like when you're at that age, you're kind of just doing it because it's fun. You're kind of just doing it because you want to hang out with everyone and all the things. And so, but it was still great because I was like learning stuff and whatnot. But I wouldn't say at that point like I was like truly like following the Lord. And then I would say probably high school is whenever I really started. I was like, okay, like this is who God is. Like I kind of had an understanding of like he wanted a relationship with me and whatnot. And so I kind of really started to try and follow him and try and pursue him. And I think I was, but I just was making so many mistakes in the process. I had like no one to talk to that was older than me whenever it came to like how to have a boyfriend, how to date, how to, go to college and like not partake in the things that you don't want to partake in. Like, how do you do that? And I did not have anyone really to talk to. And I was being discipled by a sweet lady, but I just like was so scared to like talk about it too. Because I was like, oh, like that's just off limits, like if you're Christian, like you just don't talk about those things, like you just don't talk about them. And I was like, well, and now that I'm older, I realized like no, it's like good to ask questions so you can find the truth, in a world that can be so confusing to like know the truth. And so I really struggled a lot. I would say like in high school, and then I went to college, and I just like hit the rock bottom. I went to Florida State University, which is like a very wild school, and it's not like a super big Christian presence, and so I just like really lost myself there. Like I knew when I was going to school that I wanted to follow the Lord there. Like I even went into the sorority that I went into because I felt like the Lord wanted me to be a light there. But then whenever I got there was just so much darkness and like there's so much brokenness that I just honestly like didn't even know how to be a light in that situation. And so I just did what everyone did around me. And my freshman and sophomore year was pretty difficult. And I was dating a guy that I really wanted to follow the Lord and he didn't. And there was just like, that friction and that frustration and just really difficult because I didn't know anyone who like wanted to live a life with the Lord. And so during this time, like I was like going to church and like I would serve, but I just like never really met anyone that I was like, I felt like I could talk to about like what I think. And I was just like, oh, like they know this church side of me, but they don't know like my college side or like my high school side. So I was like, I'm just gonna kind of kept like the very much so like one life here, one life. Like I was kind of like half in, half out. And in my sophomore year, I just basically hit rock bottom, long story short, and I had just made a lot of mistakes, and I was like, you know what? If this is what everyone feels like, if this is what being everyone is like, I've tried what everyone in my store is doing, what everyone on my campus is doing. I
Right.
was like, then I've tried what everyone in high school is doing, and I was like, you know what? If this is what being everyone is like and having everything, by the world standards, I was like, I do not want to be like everyone. Like I had just hit the point of like, I'm so broken, I'm so anxious, I'm so frustrated, I'm so lost. Like
Yeah.
I could not, I was like, like was even like looking at the leaves and I was like, why do they turn green? Why does this, like, I just felt like so just confused. And so I decided to really start to live my life for the Lord,
Mm.
and like really follow his word, walk with him, like talk with him, and started letting him into every avenue of my life. And I wasn't like a perfect where like the next day, like all this sin dropped off me. Like, yes, I was made new in him, and yes, he made me a new creation, but there was still things that I had done in my sin, the consequences. He had made me new, he had forgiven me. There was no shame and guilt, but things that I needed to personally work through, to be able to continue, like to continue up with him.
Yeah.
And so, and like to continue just to grow. And so I think that is something, if you're someone listening to this and you're like, yeah, I feel a lot like, I've tried everything in the world, I've done all these things, and you're like, but that transition part, like, I'm so like, it's like, I'm just going to be the first thing. It's not going to be like an overnight thing where maybe for some people it is, that's awesome, but you have been forgiven in that moment and you've been made new and you're a new creation. And then you get to continue to walk and grow with the Lord, and you get to be like, hey, God, like, I like, what do, like, how do I work through this? How do I work through that? And like, it's so awesome. You get to do that for the rest of your life. And
Right.
now the Lord has like truly healed me from those things that I dealt with in college and high school. And it's just been the coolest thing ever. So there definitely is healing. And one thing that I just always would say, like, it was like an overnight thing where I woke up and I was like, yes, I don't have the desire to sin anymore. Like, it's like, wait, you still have that
Yeah.
desire that you're like, it changes. And eventually the Lord will, I mean, I believe, uh, really does change your desires.
Yeah.
So then I started really following in my sophomore year, my junior year, my senior year, and then ever since, and just really continued to just say yes to him and walk with him. And it's been really sweet, and it's been the best decision I've ever made. I remember people would be like, "You just seem so like yourself. You seem so," and I was like, Maya. I was like, I feel so Maya getting to be with the Lord. And um, I one day realized after I was walking with him for a little bit, I was like singing the song Place of Freedom. And I was like, I kept on saying, like, I feel so Maya, I feel so Maya. And the Lord gave me the word while I was singing that song, like, free. And it's like,
Mm.
that's what I feel. Like, I feel, yes, I feel so Maya, but I feel so free to be Maya when I'm with the
Right.
Lord and walking with him. And
Right.
so it's just been a really incredible um, just journey getting to live with the Lord. And if you're anyone who's listening right now and you're like, and that happened, half out teetering stage, one, I'm sorry, and I've been there, and I could not encourage you enough to make that step, to take that step into, that cool all with the Lord where you'll never ever regret it.
Yes. That's so good. And I love the idea of like free because sometimes I think when people see Christians, it's like, oh, you have to do this, 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 and this. And they're like, how is that
Yeah.
free? But like we don't follow a God that is like, check these boxes, do this, do this, do this. That
Yeah.
the Lord does put the desire in our heart to follow him and look more like him. But
Hmm.
when you find like when you fully pursue Jesus and find Jesus, that's when you're fully free. And
Yeah.
like the idea of freedom, like I love that. And like, yes, it's like such a blessing to live in the United States where we are free to
Mhm.
serve God and just like openly talk about him. But
Yeah. That's
freedom
so
of
good.
this world doesn't look anything like the freedom we have in Jesus. Um,
Yeah. I
and
love
then
that you say that.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's it. Because even in John 10:10, it says, like, I love what you say about, like, everyone, like, I thought that too. I was like, oh gosh, like, in college, it's like, if I start following God, my life's going to look like this and this and this. It's just going to be, not fun, all the things, but there's John 10:10 that's, I have came so that you will have life and life abundantly. Like, he has not come to, like strip you away of life. He has come to give you life. So that always just really helped me.
Yes, that's so good. And then, like, what's attached to freedom is this, like, joy. Like, that doesn't mean
Mm,
life is gonna be easy and perfect, and
yeah,
just like what you said, like, you chose to follow Jesus, and it wasn't like you woke up and everything was perfect and
yeah,
easy, but it's that this, like, true joy and freedom comes from the Lord, um, and, like, what hope that is. So, I love
yeah,
that. And then, from, like, following you and everyone that follows you knows that you're married now, and so
mhm,
what did that journey look like from, maybe not being able to find a boyfriend that, loved the
yeah,
Lord and loved you well? So what did that journey look like to find now your husband and have that, like, healthy boundaries, healthy relationship?
yeah. Oh my gosh, that is such a great question. I think one of my fears, and maybe it's me, let's say it's near like in like a relationship right now where you're just like, man, his heart, isn't after the Lord, and it's just like taking a toll on you, like it was me. I remember what I used to say, and I still always say is like, when I was close to God, I was far from Him, and whenever I was close to Him, I was far from God, and
Mm,
I knew that's not how a relationship would be, and but part of me was afraid because I had never had a relationship like that before. I was
right,
like, I never had a relationship where I could be close to the Lord and close to Him. Like I was like, does that exist? I come from
right,
divorced parents and
yeah,
I had not seen that. And I was
right,
like, I've never seen that modeled in my life. And so a lot of while I was hanging on to that relationship, I feel like was really fear of like, but he's a good guy, like at least like he doesn't treat me wrong or whatever.
right,
And and so I think that once I finally let go and I was like, God, I'm just going to take a leap of faith and I'm going to trust you.
yeah,
After I did that, and kind of moving into like this season of singleness, I was kind of like, okay, God, well, like I did it. Like now, what kind of happens, And so there was definitely a lot of temptation to settle and to go back. But I just remember how I was so unhappy because I felt that such friction in my last relationship, in the sense of like I knew that I wasn't like living in God's best for me, and so I really was like, okay, like just continue to pray and ask the Lord, that He would just like help me with my contentment. And it was really sweet. He actually gave me a dream that just showed me this life that is the life that He had intended for me.
yeah,
Um, and that like it was basically in this dream I was going through my life with this man, and I was like I had no idea who the man was, no idea, and this was in a time where I was really really upset and like really struggling with like should I settle, should I not, and so I had this dream that, and I was praying, I was like, God, just please like help me know if I should settle, have I this, and of course God's like not settle, so he
right,
gives me this dream. And in this dream, I'm going through life, and I'm the happiest in the entire world, and like everything is golden, everything is pure is a great way to say it. Like I was just going through my everyday life, and I
right,
was holding hands. I was like, gosh, this is amazing. And in my dream, I was like, gosh, this is incredible. And in that dream, I heard the Lord say, like, wait for a man that makes you feel like this. That life with Him is like this. Like it's pure, it's golden, it's joy, it's like there's a presence of the Lord.
yeah,
And so I woke up and I was like, okay, God, I was like, I will wait. And I share that because maybe that will encourage you in your own, not to settle. But then also, asking the Lord, about like just to say, God, like it was months that I asked the Lord for, just clarity. And He really does love to answer His children. And so in all different ways, it could be dreams, it could be people, it could be,
right,
just reading a scripture that
yeah,
He just like really shows Himself through. So anyways,
mm,
I that kind of process happened, and then I ended up having to take 10 seconds of the same courage and ask Chance out to a formal, and I
yes,
took my husband out, and it has just been the sweetest. That formal, it didn't end up working that time, but then he ended up asking me out after that, which was sweet, and so ever since then, I will say I've never really had any fear going into that relationship of like, oh my gosh, is this going to be like the last one or whatever.
yeah,
I really just honestly from the very beginning when we started dating, I just gave it to the Lord. Like I was like, God, like I'm gonna be 100% who you created me to
right,
be, and I am gonna follow your word to like the T. Because like if this is from you, like I want to like take care of it and respect it and all the things. And so it's been the best. Like there really truly is such a difference living with somebody who loves the Lord and doing life with them. and getting like becoming one with them. Because when you get married, you're one, and I that is so important, and I can't even like just stress that beauty and that importance enough. And so now that we're one, it's like the best thing ever,
Right.
and it's sweet because iron sharpens iron. So just the content of that and just fun and the way we see things, seeing eternity at the end of things and having the joy of the Lord, it just makes life so much fun.
Right. That is so sweet. And it's like it's encouraging to hear that as like in like for me personally, like
Yeah,
waiting and like not having a boyfriend and not really pursuing that, but then
yeah,
realizing that like when it comes, it can be sweet. Like it doesn't
yeah,
have to be this thing. And even like what you said at the very beginning of if you were close to him, you weren't close to the Lord, but if you were close to the
yeah,
Lord, you weren't close with him. And I think that's even important to realize in friendships too. Like with
yeah,
your close inner circle, if they're pulling you, if you're close to these friends in this season and you're far from the Lord or the opposite, and so I think that's like a really good thing to check in all relationships. So like,
yeah,
yes, you need to be with those unbelievers and be light there. But with that close circle or with your boyfriend or with your girlfriend, like it needs to be the sense of I can be close to the Lord and be close to you at the same time.
yeah.
So that's really encouraging. And then this is a little kind of off of that
Hmm.
as you and your husband when you got married and then you said like you came from divorced
Hmm.
home, was
Yeah,
it different to learn like how his family was? Because obviously not everything's perfect and we understand that and Instagram isn't always real, but
yeah,
like we'll see like pictures of you and his family um
yeah,
on Instagram on trips, and is it like been has it been cool to learn what that like both look like? Not saying that your home
yeah,
isn't good, but
yeah,
both, like is it cool to see
yeah.
that?
It's been so cool. So it's really sweet because of his family, no one is divorced. Like I
Mm.
can't even think of one family that
Yeah.
is divorced. Like they all like and it's sweet because for him it really gave him like a great like I never I guess second guessed like
Mm.
his understanding of marriage because he had always seen it so beautifully. Like he had always like he knew what marriage was because he watched every single person in his life be married and married for like their whole lives. And it wasn't like it's not like oh they're staying married. It's like no, they're in love and they're married.
Right, yeah,
And so I feel like that it's just been so sweet, and I think it's grown me so much in realizing um and how I like and how we like because now I feel like my family has just grown so much and I'm so close with like my side and it's just been so sweet to see like the Lord redeem like everything, like even like the divorce and all the different things, like how close we could be with like all of our family is just like actually the coolest thing ever. And you learn so much from everybody, like in your life. And so I think it's definitely been really sweet. And I think it definitely helps, like, going into marriage and being like, because he was one who he was like really wanting to get married young, like he always has his whole life, because that's what he's like always seen and everything. And he was like, and I was like, I always was so sure that his heart was in the right place because I know he had seen it his whole life. So that was like a really sweet thing for me. And then some people might be like, oh, well, then what do you think he felt like for you? I felt like for me, like, even though my family was divorced, I felt like my parents were, and if like maybe your parents are, now you're listening to this, like, don't let that be a discouragement to you. Don't let that feel like it's like a curse of your life or anything like that, like a generational curse. Like, you get to break that. And, I think something that's been really cool about my parents is they've been so open to me about like why they did get
yeah,
divorced. And like, I would even encourage you, like, ask your parents, like, say, why, did it
right,
happen? My parents, they were like, we didn't know what marriage was when we went into it.
right,
And that was like something that was so good for me to hear because you know what I did? I was like, okay, then I'm gonna learn everything I can about what marriage is and do the premarital counseling and like read books about it and just be really like just learning from that. And like that's been such a sweet thing for all of us to get to do together.
yeah,
So definitely think there's some beauty in both and the Lord definitely redeems
for sure.
and so I love that. And we've just been so blessed with our family. We love them all so
Yes,
much. So
that's so
that's a
sweet.
great question. We always love talking about family. There's
Yes,
even that.
yes. I do love that part of like it's not a generational curse.
Yeah.
Like you can have beauty and it can be redeemed.
Yes.
That's really encouraging to hear
Yeah.
because some of my close people have that fear of like, what does
Yeah,
love look like?
yeah,
But when love is centered around your love for Jesus,
yeah.
it can be redeemed and restored.
Yeah,
So
and something to add to that too, like if
yeah,
maybe you're listening and you're discouraged, you're like, oh well, the guy that I'm dating that I want to marry, he's not, his family's divorced too. Like everyone is like, then
yeah,
my like encouragement would be to find a couple, a married couple that you could watch, like a married couple whose relationship is like with the Lord and who loves the Lord first, like and watch them and just ask like, hey, can we come to dinner at y'all's house once a month? Like talk to them about things. Like having that role model is so important. So maybe like go to your local church or whoever.
yeah.
Maybe you already know somebody that came to your mind. Asking them like, "Hey, will you just say like, can we come to dinner with y'all? Can we ask you some questions?" Because we learned a lot from our friends too who were married before us. So that's just a good little piece of advice
Yes.
for that.
That's so smart. That really is such a good idea. Okay, turning gears a little bit.
Yeah.
What did you think you were gonna do, like, as a job with your life? And then what do you kind of do now?
Great question. I loved science my whole life. I
Yeah,
loved medicine. I was a certified nursing assistant in high school, and then in college, up until my junior year, I was pre-med. So I was like understanding medical sciences, preclinical protection. It's a
yep,
fun one. And I loved it so much.
mm,
I still do. Like I still love
right.
medicine. I definitely am so thankful that I did change my major my junior year because not only because what I'm doing now, right now, I you don't know, I have my faith-based business and I have a faith-based like clothing brand, and then also we're launching this next week, like basically it's called Overflow Living, and it's about living out the overflow of your life with the Lord, and so those are going to be basically my two jobs for right now, and I love it so much, and I would say um, I still love medicine. I still love all science, but I think that the Lord just also like sometimes like you have it as like because my sophomore year I started a company, and then my junior year I decided to switch my major,
Yeah,
and then my senior year I got engaged. And I think like sometimes you have desires of your hearts where you're like, wait, I don't know why I'm changing, but I know that this is the right path for me. Like I know that I'm not supposed to be medicine, and it's even so cool now because how Chance and I's lifestyle. My husband plays professional baseball, so we move all the time. It's
yeah,
like I wouldn't have even been able to, like be
right,
with him and be a physician. So it's kind of sweet how like the Lord knew that. I think, and that's probably why he just changed the desires in my heart. And so, anyways, it's been sweet because now I could do what I love, but also travel with him and all that kind of stuff. So it's been like the sweetest experience to get to kind of change. And if you're someone right now who you're like, I don't know where I want to be or what I want to do, something that helped me was I just tried a whole bunch of things my freshman year. Like I just like I interned here, I got this position, I did this, like all these different things. And then I kind of let that be like, yes, it was a little exhausting.
right.
But and also coupling that with prayer. But then my sophomore year, whatever I was like, okay, I'm only gonna do the things that I love, and like that's kind of how things just narrowed down.
Yeah,
Um, so, anyways, definitely have had some fun career path changes, and it's so sweet what happens. It's cool to see too what happens when the Lord just
right.
guides you within those.
That really is sweet. And I love that, like, when the Lord puts something on your heart, He almost strips away the desires that
Yeah,
would go against it. So, like,
yeah,
for me, I always wanted to be a kindergarten teacher,
uh,
and it was like, I'm gonna teach kindergarten, I'm gonna teach kindergarten. But about a year ago, the Lord was like, no, like, you're gonna go into ministry. And
mm,
He's like stripped away the desire completely to teach
yeah,
kindergarten,
hmm,
which not that I don't love that anymore, but I
yeah,
don't have this like burning desire that feels
yeah,
like I'm gonna be empty without it.
exactly,
Because He's like, I have something bigger and better for you. And so
yeah,
like that is, like, sweet. It's, like, sweet of the Lord. It's like, "Okay, thank you for doing that." But then, like, also, like, in your situation of, like, he was like, "No, but look, this is gonna be better," and then now you get
yeah,
to go with your husband in his job, and so, like, it really does work out,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
like, his plan is better than ours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where I realized I'm like, science, I love it, but that's a hobby now. Like I'll read books about health
Yeah,
or, it doesn't
yeah,
have to be, and that's something that's just been like a sweet thing is like, I'm like, oh, now I kind of just get to do this for fun. So
right.
maybe you'll be administrative getting to help out if you want to for fun. So
Yeah,
it's just sweet to see how things can change.
it
And
does,
for the same
yes.
time, whenever it comes from the Lord.
Right, right, and, like, it just shows his plans better. Like,
Yeah,
and even
very
in
true.
our situation, like, right now, it seems like this is a
Yeah,
good idea. but it's like
So
he
cool.
has been so much better. Okay, so, what is the Lord teaching you right now, or what are you excited about right now?
That is a great question. Oh my gosh.
There's
Goodness,
always
it's like
something.
what path do I take? He's always teaching you so many different things, I feel
Yeah.
like. And I feel like right now, I think he's teaching me that like he is enough
Mm,
and that he like this is like you I've had a very like just had a lot of things that he's brought in like opportunities that I know that he wants me to do, but it's allowed my schedule to be a little crazy.
right.
And when I look at that, I used to be like someone who I would just get so stressed and be like, oh my gosh, I need to sleep this much and that much, and I have to drink this much water, and just kind of like stress out and think that I have to. And I'm obviously taking care of myself, but something that I've really learned is that like the Lord will take care of me. Like, like being with him is the most important part through all of it, a crazy schedule or opportunities or whatever it is. And he will take care of me through all of it. Like the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me to quiet waters, he lets me lie down in green pastures. Like he will lead me. And I think that's just what I'm learning right now so much is like, maybe you have a crazy schedule with school right now or like tests or exams or whatever it is. And I think that I used to look at all that and be like, oh my gosh, I need to do. And I am still going to do it. I am still going to study, and I am still going to prepare. But I have this peace because I'm like, the Lord is my shepherd. Like, God, you give me the energy that I need, like you are a ever powerful, healing, like incredible, infinite God. Like you could do anything that you set like that you want to. And so just like I think really just surrendering my life to him and as him as my guide and as him as like my shepherd who is going to provide for my needs, whether it's like, energy or just like things coming through or whatever it is,
Yeah,
has just been something that's like I've really found a lot of peace in. Um,
right.
and it's just really, I think something that he's really teaching right now. So I would say that Psalm 23, that the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And just like that whole thing. And at the very end, it says like my cup overflows, and
Yeah.
it's just been so sweet to just experience that. Like even in the midst of all the craziness, the Lord could be your shepherd and guide you, and you're literally amidst wildness, amidst a storm. Maybe you have a diagnosis or your family struggles or whatever it is. He could still he still has the ability to allow your cup to overflow because of it's from him, it's not from anything around you on the earth. So just really learning that recently has been really sweet.
That is so sweet, and it's really cool that what like, you said what you're doing next, like, as a
Mhm.
business kinda thing,
Yeah,
goes along with what the Lord is teaching you. I think you
yeah,
said it's
it's
called
crazy.
overflowed or something like that, and
Yeah,
so it really is sweet, like, this verse that the Lord has laid on your heart, this idea that the Lord is teaching you
yeah,
also is now letting you use, in a bigger way to
yeah.
almost, like, lead and teach others.
No, and you know what's so wild about that? So my mom, like 2 Christmases ago, which I feel like a horrible daughter saying this, she
Yeah.
gave me a devotional book, and it was about Psalm 23, and I never opened it.
Yep.
And I never opened it, never touched it, and then she gave it to me, and I was looking through my bookcase the other day, and I wanted to do a devotional, and it was like 2 or 3 months ago, and I opened up or it was actually no, it was like a month and a half ago, and I look at it, and I'm like, oh, Psalm 23, I'm gonna go read it. And it was right whenever we were planning to open up Overflow, like when we were like really deciding on it.
Right.
And I opened that book, that devotional book, and it's that verse, and I'm like, wow,
I love
that, like just wow, like it was just so sweet that like
Yeah.
she would have given that to me 2 years ago. Maybe your mom listened to this and you and you're like, and you're giving your daughter or your son gifts. You're like, they've never looked at that, or maybe your friend who you're trying to get your another friend, to follow the Lord. It's like you never know like the Lord's timing, and it just blessed me so much to receive that. So that was a really sweet and that's what's like that study has really taught me a lot about that Psalm 23. So it's just been such a cool God thing.
Right, that is so sweet, and, like, God things is keep showing up, and,
Yeah.
I think we said this at the beginning, but my brother, heard her speak somewhere and went up to her afterward, was like, "Please, like, my little sister really loves you," and, like, that was a God thing, that lined up perfectly,
Yeah.
and the God thing of, like, how I ended up naming the podcast of, like, Honey in the Rock, like, kept
Uh-huh.
showing up in weird ways of, like, okay, you could say this was an accident, or you could say it's the God of the universe doing
Yeah,
things on purpose.
yeah,
And so, like, I love to do look for that, and it also, like,
yeah,
makes God feel closer because He
yeah,
is near, and
yeah,
we know He's near, and His word says He's near, and we trust that, but when we look for those little God weeks or the little things of, like, the Lord and just, like, acknowledge it, it's like,
yeah,
"Oh, you are near," and it's, like, a good visual for us, I think. Um,
yeah. I
so
love that.
goodness.
That's so
Well,
sweet.
thank you so much.
Yeah, and wait, real quick on that topic. There's
Yes,
this
please.
one I made this up. It's not an actual thing, but when I was about to turn six, or when I was about 18, I was about to buy, or I guess it was 20. I don't know how old I was. Well, I was
Yeah,
about to buy a car, and I really wanted a Jeep.
yeah,
And I was looking at every car because I really, really wanted this Jeep. Like I
right.
kept on seeing Jeeps everywhere. Like I
Yeah,
was like every car anywhere was a Jeep. Like I was like, what is happening? And I kept on thinking about this, and I called it like the Jeep phenomenon. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, it's the same thing when we start to live our life with God. If we really want to live a life with God, we really desire to see Him. It's
yeah,
like you're gonna start seeing Him everywhere. It's like you cannot help but see Him everywhere because if He is everywhere. And
so
so that's just something that has like helped me. It's like whenever people are like, I just don't see the Lord right now. It's like, okay, then like, do you want to? Like it might not be like just in your own life. Like look, like it could be in other people's lives. Those Jeeps weren't mine, but they were still in my life, and I still saw them, and their presence was still there. Same thing with the Lord. Like it might not be like something that you've been praying for specifically, but it might be in somebody else's life. In the opportunity to see Him. So
goodness.
um, that's just something that whenever you're saying that, I was like, I think that
That
really
is
speaks
so
to the
good.
confidence.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. That's so good. And I love like a visual like that. Like
Yeah.
that's such like a good like, oh, we understand what she's saying there. Like everyone is
Yes.
like you get a new car and you see that car everywhere, or like
Yes.
hear of a new name and you're like, I've never heard that name, and then you hear everyone has that name.
Exactly, exactly.
That is
You're
good.
tuned in, Sometimes you just gotta be tuned into the Lord, beside that.
I love that. That is so good. Well, thank you for coming on,
Hey,
giving some time for us, but I really
of
appreciate it. And
course.
I'm so encouraged by everything you're doing as like a younger viewer where you're not like far off from me. It gives me like so much hope to see what you're doing. Um, and I know it's encouraging and I can't wait for everyone to listen to this.
Oh, I know, me too. And I know that other people are so encouraged by you. And I was encouraged by you today. So thank you so much for having me on. It was a sweet, sweet gift.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.